King Cam on Ujumbe podcast and Ujumbe meets message. And today's message is what had happened was, right? Today we're going to do more of a recap as to what was said over the last few weeks, but mainly to highlight a few things because a student actually asked me, let me bring this a little closer. A student asked me a few things, right? He asked me about the Greeks and the Romans, okay? This is a short version of the map of, say, the Nile River Valley, okay? Now, he asked me about the Greeks and the Romans, okay? According to Dr.Ben and many sources, many others, according to the book, they showed up around as a civilization around 400 to 500 BC. But we're talking about eons and eons of high culture. Remember, I mentioned high culture in the previous video. Check it out, high culture. Now, but the conversation started about calendars, okay? Why was calendars important? A young man said it was important to know about the dates and the seasons. I told him, you are right and exact. And why was it important at that time? Okay, to know, he mentioned the seasons. It's a little bit more specific. You have the lunar, the solar calendar to deal with the sun, and the stellar calendar and the stars. The lunar calendar dealt with the moon. Now, the lunar calendar, the stellar kind of tells you when certain stars appear, in certain times of the year, this may happen. It gets cooler, or because a lot of our ancestors dealt with cattle and agriculture, they knew it was about to be the rainy season and so on. But why a lunar calendar? Why would that be important for them? Because the lunar calendar dealt with the moon and phases of the moon. So why would that be important? And then the young lady mentioned for a cycle, that is correct. So they used the lunar calendar to not only count what was going on in the world around them, but what was going on in their community. So, and the reason why I led into that was because the science of the stellar and lunar calendars kind of paved the way or gave them an idea as to when all of this was happening. I gave them a modest date at about 12,000 years, 12,000 BC. That's a modest number. That's a modest year. But I mentioned a couple of countries like Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya. And then I said, look, Egypt or Kemet as a civilization has not been born yet. We're talking about 12,000 BC. So we have the Batwa people, the Maasai people, the Anuak people, as they were going northward. Wherever their cows, like I said, the cows and chickens went, that's where they went. But then here come the Oromo people and so on. So as they was going upward, they started to develop a high culture, a high society, norms, expectations, spiritual beliefs, and they use those ideas, they use science, and they use the technology that they had to answer certain questions, to deal with certain things. So, and I said from all the way up to the Mediterranean, all the way down south towards South Central Africa, all these people were Africans. They were Africans. However, we know at that time they did not call themselves Africans. They were Oromo. They were Kushite, there was Magi, there was Anahuac, there were so many people in between. And they didn't call it the Nile River, they call it the Happy River, remember? Okay, this is a review, all right? Check it out. So between this, he said, what about the Greeks and Romans? He said, they wasn't here yet. They haven't, even if they did exist in the north, they didn't know who they are or where they were, because they weren't a high culture. They wasn't even civilized to even develop to the fact to where they can call themselves a civilization. So as they moved up north, Ethiopia, the Kush. Now, what happened during the pre-dynastic period, I told him, I said, just like anybody else, there will be some fighting. There would be some little skirmishes. I asked him, why would that happen? Why would these groups, the Maasai, the Anuak, the Oromo, and many others would kind of get into it because of land, right? Because of resources. So, but unlike many others, they did not do that to destroy the other, but they just want to push them further off their land so they can do what? So they can grow, so they can thrive and grow, right? So what happened is, as they were doing this, they started to become civil. They started to get stronger and stronger. And so during this period between, say, 12,000 BC to 3,500 BC, they developed the high culture that we are talking about. In comes, as I mentioned before, the kings before the pharaohs, the Shimshu Haru. These people were around in Ethiopian Kush area. Those 40 to 42 kings. How do I know? The papyrus of Hunifer mentioned the Shimshu Haru, and the pyramid text mentioned Shimshu Haru. Those are the followers. There was a line of kings that came before King Nerma or Menes. This is the pre-dynastic period. The culture of Kemet was already thriving here. The concepts was already thriving in Ethiopia, in Kush, and so on. The only thing is, they put that information down in stone. They was able to put it in brick. They were able to put the Medu Neter into stone. All the stories their grandmother told them and great grandmother passed them. All the knowledge that was passed down, all the sciences, all the technology was passed down, and they just added on to it, added on to it. As students, we are to add on to what's being said, right? To make our life better. So what they did, they used the stellar calendar, start making stone. They start lining stones up so they can decipher when the times of the year were. Then I told them, I said, did you know there was more pyramids in Sudan and Kush than there are in Kemet? He said, no. Yes, they are. It's like when you have a sketch, when you're drawing something, what you're trying to do is get better at it. All you're doing is adding on and getting better. Now the grand pyramids, yes, they were the grandest of them all. But I told them this. I said, remember, we was a civilization and civilized long before the Greeks and Romans came. The thing was, he was trying to wrap around his mind the concept that the Greeks and the Romans weren't there. Like Professor Small said, they were not even in our periphery. They weren't. What was happening, it was just all us. So, and I mentioned that the Sphinx, or the Haru Im Akhet, is over 10,000 years old, older than the pyramids. And so all these things was lined up to the stars, okay? And so he said, so when did they come? When did they show up? I said around the 30th dynasty. But I think Dr.Ben kind of corrected me on that. It was around about the 27th, 28th dynasty, okay? Check me out. Y'all can like, comment, subscribe, let me know. But this is around 400 to 500. This is around 400 to 500 BC, before Common Era. Kemet at this point is old. She's tired. Now we have some infighting here. Now we have some people beefing, getting into it with each other and so on. We have four, like many brothers who say, we have four golden ages. So they was on that ebb and flow. Okay. So when Greece got done, got kicked out, here come the Romans, and then here come the Persians. And so Kemet as an empire after the 30th dynasty was basically no more. Yes, we went up to 33 and so on, but at the power, the culture, and the sciences of Kemet, it was there anymore. And he said, he asked questions like, did we move further beyond that? Say yes. In the New Kingdom, there was great kings like Ramesu, Ramses, and Tuthmosis, and so on. They expanded their borders, but because of what was going on, they had to come back, right? But they was everywhere. I even mentioned that Ethiopia had ships They went to Yemen and India. This was happening long before everybody else and anybody else. So remember, okay, we had a stellar calendar. We had a lunar calendar. Why? To decipher the season, figure out what's going on around us and in our community. Okay, we had different cultures, different tribes. Look them up. Check it. I told them check me out. I may be wrong, right? I'm still learning too, y'all. The Oromo people. That's your homework. Look up the Oromo people, the Maasai, Anuak, Batwa, anybody around here, because this is where it all started. And I showed them on the map. It was even further south towards Swaziland and Zululand. So this thing goes, this is, like I said, 12,000 BC is a modest number. This is just, throwing something, but it goes further back than that, y'all. So between 12,000 BC to 3,500 BC, we had the Shimshu Baru. We had great kings and queens also. Then we had King Menes in the first dynasty, the Old Kingdom. He was the king of northern and southern, or upper and lower Egypt. What I did, I showed him a picture of Happy tying the Nile River together to show him an illustration as to how he was in control of both sides of the land. King of the north and south. He was King Menes, king of the north and south. And then we had the other dynasties. They said, look, we're done making pyramids, we on to something else. That's what Black people do. Once we get tired of doing something, we get tired of clowning y'all real quick, getting these gold medals, going platinum and doing all this, we're gonna do something else. And so he said, what about Aristotle? I said, well, Aristotle, he didn't know anything until he came and learned among our priests. But the issue was he didn't stay long. He didn't stay long enough to gain the full knowledge. To my understanding, he didn't stay 40 years. He stayed about 29 to 30 years. However, I've been told that the Europeans only had 33 degrees of knowledge, but we had 360, and see what they have done with just 30, that half of a half, right? So, but we have 360. And so the thing is, there's still people, I was telling them, there's people in Yemen, in Nubia, Sudan, Ethiopia, and so on, that still has the knowledge and the science of our ancestors. And if we humble ourselves and ask it correctly, or just seek it and research it, it will come to us, right? And they will share with us. Only reason why a lot of people think that the pyramids came from outer space is because the people that live out here is telling them it's none of their business. Because you, Greeks and Romans, came to steal, kill, and destroy. So what happened after that? When Greece and Rome came, and they was there to stay. When the Persians came, and they were there to stay. Most of the people in Kemet moved south, back to Kush, or westward, the Dogon people, and so on. So we have Kush. I told them they had an army. They had the Magi. They had people that could take your eye out with an arrow a mile away. The Greeks wasn't coming down here. The Romans was coming down here. Plus, it was too hot. Right? So, y'all, that's a little bit of the recap. I know between pages 140 to 160, Dr.Ben does go into some chronology and timelines, but this is basically, we may do it again because I like to go over the timeline again, kind of refresh myself. But down here from the mountains of the moon, down here, we developed calendars. We had culture, high culture, and all these people were connected. All these people were Africans, and they were doing their thing. There was nobody telling them what to do or how to do it. They were doing it and doing it well. So check out King Menes, the founder of Kemet, or the political idea, the empire, right? Check out the Anuak people, the Maasai people, Oromo people, Batu. There's so many others. I'm just naming a few, but the Bantu people, and God, I can go on and on. But you guys, check it out. This is a little review. I know the light is a little dim, but let me see. We have a little, it's kind of makes it adjust a little bit, but it was a glare, so I had to make some adjustments. But y'all, check it out. Look up the Happy River. Look up the lunar calendar, stellar calendar. Look up the Maasai. Look up the Shimshu, especially that the Shimshu Haru. Check them out, right? Okay. But this is King Cam with Ujumbe podcast. I am in between parent conferences, so we had kind of had an interesting day. So I figured I'd do this real quick. And I hope you guys having a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and keep studying, keep sharing. And once again, it's King Cam with Ujumbe podcast with Ujumbe Meets Message. And today's message is what had happened was it started up south and it gradually moved northward and beyond. All right. Talk to you later. Have a good one.